As we mentioned before, it's sometimes easier said than done to give yourself permission to relax, to push that to-do list to one side, and to tune in to the breath and to the body. We're going to take a few moments to mindfully release any tension, to unclench, and to feel the weight of our bones sink a little more deeply into the earth beneath us. Have that sense that you'll be fully supported here. Know that Mother Nature has your back. You can release the weight of your arms, your legs, the back of your head. You can relax the weight of your jaw, soften the tongue in the well of the mouth, and release the eyebrows. Tune into the natural rhythm of your breath. And just notice anywhere if the breath may feel constricted, anywhere that perhaps sends back a message of pain or limitation. Acknowledge any imbalances in the body. And without judgment, set an intention to nurture, to nourish, to energize the body, and to prepare for the work of our practice today. Start by slowing the breath down, deepening the inhalation, lengthening the exhalation, expanding and widening into the space that surrounds you. Remember, every out-breath is a letting go. So try not to hold on to too much control. Give yourself permission to release, to relax. Focus only on the rhythm of the breath. Deepening the inhalation to fill the lungs completely. Lengthening the exhalation to empty the lungs fully. Directing the breath all the way down to the belly. On the inhale, feel the belly rise. On the exhale, feel the belly soften and release. Almost as though you're filling a balloon from the bottom up. Emptying that balloon from the top down. Inhaling to the belly, the chest and the collarbones. Exhaling from the collarbones, the chest and the belly last. Just tune in quietly to this natural rhythm of the breath. Feeling the wide muscles of your back submit a little more deeply to the earth. And rather than feeling a sense of being heavy, notice that with each deep inhalation, you're filling your body with positive energy, creating lightness, energizing the body. Now simply draw your attention back to the sensations of the breath at the tip of the nose, the cool air on the breath in, the warm air on the breath out. Take a deep breath in through the nose, an audible breath out through the mouth. Another deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. This next exhalation, release with an audible sigh. Allow your breath to find its way back to a natural, easy rhythm. And tune in again to your physical body. Feel the sensation of your clothing against your skin. The cool air in the room at your face, your hands, your feet. And gently start to reawaken the body here. Wiggling fingers and toes. Wriggling the jaw. Wriggling the nose. Now just notice the position that you've chosen to lay in, drawing the feet a little closer together, then inhaling to lift both arms overhead, taking a long stretch through the body, taking length through the front of the body here, pointing through fingers, pointing through toes, then exhaling to draw the right knee towards the chest, applying gentle pressure to the shin, feeling that space in the lower back release to the floor. Redirect that right knee out towards the right shoulder. So we're widening the space at the lower back, creating a little release in and around the hip joint. As you draw that knee back to center, keep the hand on the shin and start to draw little circles with the knee, mobilizing the hip. Pressing as gently as you like on that shin, every release pushing the lower back to the floor. Now let go of the knee, inhale to lengthen, take the arms overhead again, another long stretch down through the front of the body. On the next exhale, hug the left knee in. Again, we'll start with hand to the shin, applying a little pressure to release the lower back, redirecting the left knee out towards the left shoulder. Then once more, drawing those circles with the knee, warming the hip socket, easing and widening the space at the lower back. Then again, extending that left leg along the mat. Inhale once more to lift the arms overhead. Press through fingers, toes, straightening the legs. Then bringing the thumbs together in an interlock, drawing the toes in towards the shins so that the feet are in flexion. Keeping the legs straight as you do so, and then moving the upper body to the right so that you feel a deep stretch from the left of the waist through the rib cage up to the underarm. Inhale to return to center. Take another long stretch here. Then as you exhale, return the feet to flexion and squeeze the upper body to the left, opening out through the right of the waist and the rib cage. Inhale again to return to center. Take a further long stretch through the body. Then on an out breath, hug both knees in towards the chest. As we keep the hands on the knees, gently rock over towards the right hip. Then almost as though you're drawing a figure of 8 with the knees, we're simply rocking from one hip to the other. Kind of feels like a massaging action over the lower back, across that tight fascia at the sacrum. Then draw back towards center. Replace both feet on the mat. Now I'd like us to draw the soles of the feet together and let the knees widen. So we call this a supine Baddha Konasana, bound ankle pose. So the feet are touching, the knees are rolled out, and we're just allowing gravity to deepen the stretch to the inner thigh to create more space in and around the hips. Then we're going to lift the arms overhead again, this time resting the backs of the hands on the floor, palms turned up to the ceiling. So as we open the hips, we're softly and gently finding a little more space through the chest and encouraging a release of weighting down through the back of the shoulder blades, widening through the back of the rib cage, soft through the neck and the jaw. On the next exhale, drawing the heels a little closer to the groin. So just making that angle at the knee a little tighter. On the next breath out, spread the knees a little wider, softening a little more into that space in the inner thigh. Then as you exhale, draw the tummy button in. Keep that core control as you slide the thighs back towards center, repositioning the heels hip width apart, feeling the insides of the feet parallel. Repositioning the hands either side of the hips, palms once more turned up to the ceiling, shoulder blades drawn together. So you might notice that naturally the lower back has lifted. So let's take a deep breath in to widen through the chest. On the breath out, draw the tummy button to the spine and push the small of the back to the floor. On the next inhale, push into the soles of the feet. Just make a comfortable diagonal here, lifting the bottom from the mat, drawing a diagonal line from the knee through the hip to the shoulder, staying nice and soft in the chest, in the neck. Inhaling to press the shins forward, lifting the thighs a little higher, just opening into that space at the front of the hip flexors. Then on an out breath, start at the space between the shoulder blades as you gently roll down vertebra by vertebra. Bringing the middle back, then the lower back, to ease back to the floor. Lift the arms straight above the shoulders. Palms are facing in towards one another, thumbs pointing towards the back of the room. And although we're tempted to press through the fingertips and lift the shoulders from the floor, just remind yourselves to draw the shoulder blades together and rest the weight of the upper arms back into the floor. On an out breath, again, draw the tummy button in, pushing the lower back to the mat. Then lift the feet from the floor, creating a 90-degree angle at the knees, bringing the feet into flexion, so the toes are pointing up. Beautiful. And for now, we'll just stay in this static contraction, feeling that with every out breath, we're just working a little harder to just nudge that tummy button in, to push that space in the lower back to the floor. If we don't have that core engagement, we get a sense that the lower back is overworking. So we want to use that control in the tummy button to keep filling that little gap. We'll keep the knees as they are. Then on the next exhale, slide the arms back, resting the thumbs an inch from the floor. So we're just moving up through the rectus abdominis, activating the upper abdominals. We're still feeling that little lift, so be careful again to keep drawing the tummy button in, pushing the small of the back to the floor, keeping the heels hip width apart rather than resting the feet together better. Then on an out breath, let's bring the arms back to center first, resting onto the flats of the shoulder blades again. Then we'll extend the right leg forward. Rest that heel an inch from the floor, keeping that core control. Sliding the left arm back, resting that thumb an inch from the floor. Wide through the chest on an inhale. On an exhale, draw the tummy button in. Bring the knee back to center, slide the arm back to center. Wide through the chest on the breath in. This time on the breath out, extending the left heel forward. So again, we're hovering an inch from the mat, taking the right arm back, resting that thumb an inch from the floor. Wide through the chest, all static contraction. Then on the next out breath, draw that left knee in, and then we'll hug both knees in towards the chest. Very well done. So that was quite hard work to keep that static contraction going all that time. Given that we now feel we've contracted and held the abdominal muscles, we'll just give them a little stretch by replacing the feet to the mat, bringing the hands again either side of the hips, pushing into the soles of the feet, and lifting again into that supported bridge pose. Pressing the shins forward, lifting the thighs a little higher. Try not to let the knees roll out. Let's keep the knees in line with the hips, pressing the shins forward. Then again, we'll take our time on an out breath to gently roll down through the spine, easing through the upper back, into middle back, feeling that connection through the lower back, then feeling the full weight at the back of the hips sink to the floor. Slide the hands up to about shoulder level. So we'll keep the backs of the hands rested on the floor, palms turned up to the ceiling, almost as though we're making a cross shape with the upper body. On the exhale, draw the tummy button in and bring both knees in towards the chest. Wide through the chest on the breath in, on the breath out. Take those knees over to the right side as you turn your gaze along the length of the left arm. Remember to breathe that left shoulder to the floor, finding that space at the side of the ribcage. Working with the breath to open through the chest, to release through the side of the hip. Then on an exhale, draw the tummy button in. Core engagement needed to roll the weight of the knees back through center, taking the knees to the opposite side, this time turning the gaze along the length of the right arm. You might find that one side is a little tighter than the other, so work with the breath to sink a little more deeply into this space. Again, using the in-breath to widen through the chest, the out-breath to release any tension through the lower back into the side of the hip. On the next exhale, engage the core and roll both knees back towards center. Now you might prefer now to bring the hands underneath the bottom. So we want to go to the kind of fleshy part of the bottom, palms turned down, effectively by creating that little lift under the bottom. We're getting the hips into a much more natural position to extend the heels, straighten the legs, pushing the soles of the feet until they are parallel to the ceiling. Drawing the toes towards the shins. Pressing a little more keenly through the heels, almost as though you're pulling the back of the sit bones to the floor. Inhaling to point the right toe, then flexing that back to the shin. Inhaling to point the left toe. Exhaling to flex back. Inhaling, point both toes. Come back to flexion. Push again through the heels. A little bend on the left knee as you lower the right heel down, resting that heel an inch from the mat, using the heel to draw 3 wide circles away from the midline of the body. So it's almost like you're stirring into the hip socket, then change direction. Bringing that heel again an inch from the floor, keeping that core engagement as you float the right heel back up. Little bend in that right knee as you float the left heel down. Keep that heel an inch from the floor. And again, we'll repeat those 3 wide circles, mobilizing the hip joint, activating the inner and outer thigh, changing direction. Then resting that heel an inch from the floor, engaging the core and floating that heel back to the center point. On an out breath, bend both knees. Let the hands release as you hug the knees in towards the chest. Replace both feet on the floor. Reposition the hands at that point of shoulder height, turning the palms up towards the ceiling, so resting on the floor. Then lift and lengthen through the right leg. Tip that toe in towards the shin, push through the heel. So we're just fine-tuning the back of this right hamstring now. Inhaling to point, exhaling to flex. Using the toe to draw 3 circles in, then using the toe to draw 3 circles out. Gloria, just be careful, that's the hip, I think, so just use the toe
so it mobilises the ankle. That's better. Then bring the hands to an interlock behind that right thigh. Push a little more keenly through the heel. Try to remain relaxed through the shoulders as you draw that thigh closer to the chest. Push again through the sole of the right foot and avoid lifting the bottom from the floor. So we're feeling this all on the back of the hamstring muscle. On an exhale, bend that right knee. Then replace that foot to the floor. Again, arms out to the side, palms turned up, as we lift and lengthen through the left leg. So again, we'll gently point and flex to get the ankle going. Then we'll use the big toe, just easing out any creaks and groans in the ankle here. Taking your time so that we go through full range of movement. Then coming again to full flexion, pushing through the heel, drawing the hip back to the floor. Then when you're ready, taking an interlock behind that left thigh and drawing the thigh again towards the chest. If you push through the heel, it irons out that little bend in the knee, but just take care not to lift the bottom from the floor. On and out breath, bend that left knee in, then replace that foot to the mat. Let's be a little more dynamic in our getting up. So you can either place the hands behind the thighs, or if you wish, you can bring the hands back to the front of the shins again, whatever's comfortable for you. And we're gently going to roll up using the tummy muscles. Then we're going to roll back down. Again, it's like a massaging action. This time we feel as though that pressure up through the mat is working either side of the spine. Just 2 or 3 rock and rolls, and then lift yourself fully up to a seated position. Good work. Let's come into, in fact, I think I'll start with the wide leg position. So we'll take the left foot away, toe pointing up towards the ceiling. We're going to bring the sole of the right foot to rest. I need to move back, yeah. Sole of the right foot to rest on the inner thigh. So we'll keep a little softness behind that left knee. If we push it too hard, there's a tendency for us to overwork that joint. Lift up out of the sit bones, position the hands in front of that front shin, then on and out breath, just take a little walk forward. It's like we're hinging at the hips, so use that ball and socket joint. A breath in will lift us up out of the sit bones. A breath out will just create a little more space to come a little deeper. It might be useful to kind of perhaps aim to bring the elbows to the floor. They don't have to be on the floor, but it's just a nice comfortable action so that we're not overworking the shoulder. Good. Exhale, draw the tummy button in, bring the gaze to the end of the fingertips, then walk the hands back towards center. Good. Let's do it on the opposite side. So extending the right leg this time, folding the left knee in. And again, let's look for the differences. I always find that in this side, my knee's a little higher, so we're not balanced in any way, shape, or form. Toes pointing up again towards the ceiling, then taking an out breath to start that little walk forward. An in breath to lengthen, an out breath to come a little more deeply into this space. If you notice that the right sit bone is lifting from the floor, we want to just adjust our weight so that we're equally weighted. So perhaps lift that left knee to give yourself a little more space. Bring your gaze to the end of the fingertips. Exhale, engage the core and walk the hands back towards center. Good. Let's bring the soles of the feet together. So we did this when laying down, this supine Baddha Konasana. I always find that when we're upright in Baddha Konasana, it's quite a challenge because naturally the spine wants to pull you back and we have to work quite hard to lift and lengthen out the sit bones. Quite often we find that we have a lot of resistance in and around the hips and the inner thighs. So let gravity kind of release the knees. For now, I'm going to stay holding on to the toes or the ankles, but it's not a white knuckle ride, nice and soft grip. Then on the exhale, just gently bring the chest forward into that space. Shoulder blades drawn together so that we avoid curving the spine. And if anything, when we inhale, we're lengthening, lifting the sternum, then exhaling to ease a little more deeply into this space. Good. Engage the core again. Inhale to lift back to center. Nicely lifted out the sit bones, so feeling nice and long and refreshed in your upper body so that the ribs aren't sitting on top of the belly. Take hold of the right foot and push through the heel. Beautiful. If you find it's more comfortable to grab hold of the ankle, you can, because I'm conscious that obviously arms are not as long as legs, so we do run out of space. Then bring that foot back to center. Engage and lift again, then push the opposite heel up and away. Good. Not for the faint-hearted. For those of you who haven't done it before, you might want to watch and take a moment before you commit. We'll lift both heels. Keeping the sternum lifted, and just have a right good laugh about it, Jane. That's what it's all about. Good, brilliant, brilliant. I have confidence in sunshine. That's it, just throw yourself in. Good work. Then bring the soles of the feet back together. That was excellent. I'm really impressed with that. Let's take both legs wide now. So we've created a little more release in the inner thigh. We've softened that space at the back of the hamstring, so we can allow the weight of the knees to release towards the floor, toes pointing up towards the ceiling. And again, it's that sense of lifting the rib cage up from the belly. On an out breath, walk the hands forward. On an in breath, lengthen through the sternum. Then again, we want to have that sense of easing the elbows towards the floor. They're not going to necessarily get on the floor. I have had people in my class get their chest on the floor, but frankly, I just think that's showing off. You'll get barred if you do that. What we could do is we could take the hands and park them either to the inside of the knees, perhaps the calves, to the ankles, or to the soles of the feet if we've got space, and then ease a little more deeply. Now that really is quite keenly stretching the inner thigh. Now we never ping up from this position because the back muscles are now quite exposed. So the first job is to exhale, engage the core, so we're supporting the back. Bring the hands under the shoulders, then gently push yourself back to center. Lovely. Now let's slide the feet together so that we're not ending up on a horse after this. Then bring that right knee up and in. We're going to park that right foot up and over. So the left leg remains in a straight line, toe pointed up towards the ceiling. In an ideal world, that right foot will be fully connected to the floor. I find that I have a tendency to roll to the outside edge of the foot. So to just give it a little bit more ballast, use the left hand to just gently bring that right thigh a little further over. It just pushes the foot to the floor. Reposition the right hand behind the hip, lift up out of the sit bones, and then rather than thinking you're turning your head, start to open the rib cage towards the back of the room, and then turn your gaze over that shoulder. So coming into a nice deep twist. This is Marichyasana, the great sage twist. As you exhale, release your grip there. Bring your gaze forward. Extend the right leg forward. Bring the left leg in. So same setup, we want to have a little bit of lift and length through the spine. Once we bring that foot over, in order to bring that foot flush to the floor, we'll use the opposite hand just to adjust and create deeper stretch here. Left hand behind the hip, then on and out breath, come into the first part of the twist, and inhale to lift, and exhale to open the rib cage fully towards the back of the room. Then release all that tension, bring your gaze forward, extend both legs forward. I'm just going to turn side on for a moment so that you can see this. Now, the mat that I use has got a kind of velvet type topping to it, so it's not brilliant when I do like handstands and even downward facing dog. But it's very helpful for being able to slide along the mat. Most of you will be on a sticky mat and your feet kind of stick. So we'll just kind of have to work our way through this. I'm going to start lifted up out the sit bones, and then I'm going to lean forward. The elbows come to the inside of the knees as you take hold of the big toes. Now I want to try as far as possible to keep that straight line through the back. So we're avoiding curving, we're avoiding leaning forward, we're lifting, and then we're just sliding the feet along the mat, keeping that upper body nice and long. So diagonal is fine, just curved spine isn't ideal. As you exhale, bringing the belly towards the thigh, pushing the back of the thighs towards the floor, shoulder blades drawn together. Then keep the core engagement as you release the fingers from the toes, reposition the hands either side of the hips, walk the feet in, push down into the soles of the feet, lift the bottom, and come into an upside down table position. Pressing the shins forward, lifting the thighs, lifting the hips. Watch out for those soggy bottoms. Walk the feet forward if you need to provide more space through the front of the thighs and into the hip flexors. Then as you exhale, gently lower the sit bones back to the floor. Excellent work. I'm loving the cat joining in. That's just fantastic. I don't know how you can concentrate. It's amazing though. She's just like all over you giving it. Yeah, I'll join in. I can do all of that. The blooming show-offs cats. So in honor of the cat, let's come onto all fours and we'll do a quick cat stretch. And I bet you she'll show us how much better she can do it than we can. Knees hip width apart, wrists directly underneath the shoulders. Turn the toes under. So that action of drawing the tummy button to the spine is what starts us off. That means that we lift the lower back first, starting a curve, then gently nodding the chin to the chest and lengthening the space at the back of the neck. Release back into a neutral spine position. Rest on the tops of the feet. Reverse the curve the opposite way as you lead the sternum forward. Lovely. So exhale, roll up into cat. Inhale, lift the chest forward into what we call cow pose. Lift back into an all fours position. Keep the core engaged. Slide both hands forward, almost as though we're sticking the palms to the mat. So we're really pressing into that sweet spot at the base of the thumb, the base of the index finger. Then on an out breath, push the sit bones back to the heels, lining up the ears between the upper arms, using every breath out to just take your weight a little further back. That intensifies the stretch through the shoulders, through the side of the rib cage. And we just allow a little release there for the lower back, a widening and a softening. Lower the elbows to the floor as you slide the chest forward, slide the thighs back, and bring the whole of the front of your body to just rest on the floor. Elbows either side of the chest, palms either side of the head. Anchoring the thighs to the mat by gently pressing the thighs forward. Exhaling to draw the tummy button in, inhaling to push into the forearms, lifting the sternum forward. Now we have a little bit of freedom in the spine here, but we always want to be careful of what we do for the lower back. So on the out breath, just turn the head rather than twist the body, and we'll look the head over one shoulder, then inhale to look forward. Exhale, look over the other shoulder. Inhale again to look forward. On the out breath, lower down. Bring the forehead to rest and reposition the hands in an interlock behind the lower back. Shoulder blades drawn together. Again, that little anchoring through the thighs will just protect the lower back. On an out breath, squeeze the hands up away from the lower back. On an in breath, lift the chest. And then if you wish, you can lift the feet to create a bow pose. Beautiful. Keep the breath steady rather than holding the breath. Then as you exhale, release down. Reposition the hands either side of the chest. Sort the elbows out. Let's draw them in towards the rib cage. Push into the palms. Inhale, lift the chest. As the thighs remain connected to the floor, we get a little deeper into this cobra pose. On an out breath, release back. And extend to sit back onto the heels again. Rather than keeping the hands stuck to the floor, we'll lift the fingertips, press the wrists to the mat, and we'll just change the emphasis of that stretch. Then replace the palms to the floor. We'll come back up into an all fours position. And I'm just going to slide the shins forward to come into hero pose. I just want to check in and make sure that everyone's comfortable in this position. So sometimes it's called Japanese style. If you do Bikram yoga, they call it Japanese. Because if you go to a Japanese tea house, this is how you would sit to drink your tea. Is anyone feeling mega discomfort? Gloria, are you not happy? Knees or ankles? Knees, okay. So what I would suggest is if you have a cushion, in fact, I think you've got some bricks, haven't you? Some yoga bricks. Perfect. So the tension in the knees is caused because these muscles, say the IT bands, they're kind of more like fascia than muscles. They're very, very tight. And so they kind of pull on the knees and stop that action of sitting back on the hips. So closing the gap by putting a pillow in there, or if you want to be super fancy and you've got yoga props, you can stick a block in there. And you just find it's a little bit easier on the knees. Does anyone have any tension at the front of the ankles, or are we good? Perfect, okay. Sometimes the front of the ankles can feel tense, and all we would do is just stick like a rolled up blanket or something underneath just to release. So we feel now that we're all kind of in a position where we can hold this. I remember this from when I was first taught. I always kind of lift the padding of the bottom up off the heels and then let it spread back down again. It's nice to keep the feet warm, but more importantly, you'll feel a better connection through the sit bones, and it kind of reminds you to do that lift, that length. Oftentimes in this position, we can find that we have a tendency to lean forward or back. So I try to remind myself to tuck the tailbone down between the heels. Beautiful. Extend both arms forward. Bring the palms together. We're going to put right forefinger over left. So we're creating an interlock here. So we're pushing the backs of the hands away, opening the palms towards the heart. Lovely. Then turning the hands inside out. I think it's all right, Jane, you'd already done it. I was catching up to you. Then engage the core and lift the arms up overhead. Try to keep the shoulders down away from the ears. Just check in with your position. If you can see yourself on the screen, just see if you're leaning slightly forward. In an ideal world, we'll have that plumb line from the back of the head to the tailbone, core engaged, and we'll be pressing through the palms to nicely lengthen through the side of the body and to warm up our inner fire. As you exhale, release that interlock. We'll bring the hands down behind the back, left forefinger over right. The shape of the spine doesn't change as we ease the hands away from the lower back and open through the chest. Usually we find one way is comfortable and the other way is purgatory. That's yoga for you. Then bring the hands back into the lower back, separate, we're nice and relaxed. I won't keep you in hero pose because I know that it's a great limiter, not everyone loves it. We'll come back onto this all fours position. So if you're finished with your cushion, just pop it to one side so it doesn't trip you up. And we're just going to take the right foot back, turn the toe under and push through the heel. So because we were sitting back on the legs, the calves might feel a little tight now. So we're just easing out the tightness in the calf muscle, bringing that knee back in, taking the left foot back. Then once more, bringing that knee back in. Let's make sure that the knees are hip width apart. They do have a tendency to slide together. Turning both toes under, keeping the wrists underneath the shoulders as you comfortably transfer your weight back. So we're pushing back towards the heels. The toes are turned under. So let's flip the knees from the floor and press the heels to the mat. Nice long line through the spine if we can muster it. And a big old bend in the knees, even if we need to walk the feet in to get that big old bend in the knees. Good. When you're good at downward facing dog, this one feels really alien because I'm asking you to do the opposite. Then when you're ready, bend the knees, sit back on the heels. Let's place one hand on top of the other and bring the forehead to rest on the back of the hands. Now gently roll through the forehead, bringing the left ear parallel to the mat. Then roll all the way the opposite way, bringing the right ear parallel to the mat. So we're just easing out any tension in the back of the neck, bringing the forehead back to center, realigning to push back up into our all fours position with the knees again hip width apart. Elbows nice and soft, turning the toes under. This time, rather than keeping the knees fully bent, when we pull up, we want to make a kind of V position. So chances are the heels will be still a little off the floor. So if we bend one knee, we can push the opposite heel to the mat, then switch over to the other side. So we're alternating, one heel down, then the other heel down. Pressing the sit bones towards the back of the room. Let's aim to press both heels to the floor. Inhale to lift the tailbone and just intensify that stretch to the back of the hamstrings. Keep pushing away from the wrists, lining up the ears between the upper arms. Inhaling to lift the tailbone, then exhaling to release all the way back down. Softening again into the child's pose. This time bringing the forehead fully onto the mat as you tuck the hands either side of the ankles, rotating the wrists, just to release any tension there. Then return back to this nice, comfortable, all fours position. Good. So we started the session working the space on the inner thighs, in and around the hips. So let's just take that a little deeper. Let's now take the knees wide. So it's almost as though you're doing your Baddha Konasana, but more likely you'll get the toes touching, but not the soles of the feet touching. Then we'll come down onto the forearms. So bend the elbows. Be nice and comfortable on the forearms. Don't overload the elbows or the shoulders. Then on and out breath, push the sit bones back towards the heels. So we're sinking a little more deeply into this space in the inner thighs. You might find you can get your forehead to the floor. Doesn't matter if you don't, it's just that's fine if you can, it's natural. Every out breath, easing a little more deeply into this inner thigh space. Then as you exhale, engage the core, press into the forearms, inhale, come back. Slightly off an all fours position because the knees are wide. So we're going to turn the toes under and jump the feet forward. I'll face you so that you can see the shape. So in my case, I've got the heels on the floor. It's only because I think I'm odd because most people have got their heels up. There's obviously something anatomically longer or shorter in me. I have no idea. I'll take it though, because it's a lot easier to be in this position with the heels down, let me tell you. So we're just going to bring the hands to an Anjali Mudra in front of the heart. And to make it a level playing field, for those of us who can get the heels down, we have to lift our heels up because it's considerably harder when you're on the balls of the feet. I'm also just going to bring my knees a little closer because I will lose my balance. And extend the arms forward. So I'm using my thumbs clipped together in an interlock just to give me a little bit of a rudder, really. Beautiful. So the key is that we keep the heels up, we use core engagement and lift up. We keep the heels up, we keep that core engagement, and we lower all the way down. So we're inhaling to lift up, exhaling to lower down. As you lift up, avoid locking the knees out. So we're always soft, we're always ready to sink back into a squat. Lovely. Inhale, good, good, good. We'll do 2 more. Inhale to lift, exhale to lower. Then I'll bring you back up to the lift. Heels are still off the floor. So take a moment to just gently press them to the mat. Make sure the insides of the feet are parallel. Then we'll just bring the palms together, lengthening, exhaling to ease to the right, opening out through the left of the rib cage. Inhaling back to center, exhaling, taking it to the opposite side. Then come back to center. Bring the hands back to heart. Just for a moment, I'm just going to change your feet position. So if you look down, quite a few of you are standing with your feet in the, what I call the aerobics position. So we're ready to jive. In yoga, we always keep our heels directly under the hips. And your hips are not as wide as you think they are. So you might find it easier by bringing the knobbly bits of the feet together, touching the ankles together. And then effectively, if you keep the ankles, keep the, what do you call them, bunions, I don't know what you would call that joint, but where I've got bunions, if you push them, push the heels apart, then line up the insides of the feet. Perfect. That's as wide as your hips are. So although we're tempted to stand here, it's not hugely beneficial to the lower back. So we're much more in control here. Lovely. Inhale, lift the arms up, overhead. We'll keep them in a Y formation as we press through the fingertips, draw the shoulders back down from the ears. Check in with the hip sway. So let's make sure that the thighs are drawn back, the tailbone is tucked under. Every out breath, we're drawing the tummy button in. And through the in-breath, we're reaching a little further with the fingertips. On the next exhale, engage the core. Bring the hands back again to heart. Now we're going to take the feet wide. We're still not in aerobic pose, we're really going for it, we're exaggerating it. So again, we'll start with the insides of the feet parallel. So the toes are pointing towards the front of the room and we're keeping that little bit of slack in the knees. Bring the hands to the hips, just makes it easier to feel the mechanics of what's going on. Then as you exhale, hinge the chest forward. So you'll be thankful for that little softness in the knees because it avoids too much pulling at the back of the thighs. When you're in a 90-degree angle, I want you to push the sit bones back and start to just pull the knees back, not fully locking them out, but just increasing that stretch. Good. Nice work. Then as you exhale, draw the tummy button in. Inhale, lift. Come back to center. Good. Now I'm going to turn that right toe away, about a 15-degree angle. I'm going to sink into a big old knee bend on that side. So in an ideal world, we want to stay to no more than a 90-degree angle. So if we see the knee travel over the toe, we just need to pull it back. It might be that you just need to take that leg a little wider. And as you lean onto this front thigh, you might notice you're getting a deeper stretch to the inside of the back foot, the inside of the back thigh. Hazel, your hips look really far forward to me. So we're going to keep the hips square, rolling the knee out. That's better. You can feel it now in the inner thigh. I think before when you're here, you don't really notice. Then we'll take the weight through center. We're going to turn that left toe away, making sure that right foot's facing forward. Gloria, I'm watching your position now because I think also you need to just focus on getting the hips square. Then when you come into the bent knee, you want the transference of the weight into this back inner thigh. That's it, and it doesn't have to be far. Perfect, perfect. Then come back to center. So let's keep it that both toes are ever so slightly turned out. We'll come back into that 90-degree leaning forward again. Then wrap the hands around the elbows. That kind of gives us a little bit of weight. And we're going to bring the elbows parallel to the floor, tucking the head down between the upper arms. So we're just kind of hanging there. Lovely. You might need to take the feet wider if you feel that you're a little bit stuck. But don't go so wide that you end up in the splits, because I'm not nearby to get you out of them. You'll have to phone the yoga hotline. Let's take the hands off of the elbows and place the hands either onto the floor or fingertips to the floor. If you've got that yoga block or a pillow handy, you might kind of want to just do that little bit of height, come a little higher. Walk the hands forward, coming a little deeper. Takes the strain off the back of the legs. Then on and out breath, start to bring the elbows towards the floor again. So as we did when we were doing the seated cross-leg posture, you might want to bring the top of the head to the floor. You might want to tell me to bog off, that's fine. I'm used to it. Then taking your time, because we've been upside down, we don't want to get dizzy. Engage the core. First thing we want to do is just lift the gaze to the end of the fingertips. And we're going to keep our gaze forward of the fingers on the floor. Walk the hands a little closer towards the body. Heel toe the feet a little tighter together. And come into a big solid squat again, so really bend the knees. Bring the hands onto the thighs. Keep looking down at the floor. Exhale, draw the tummy button in. Inhale, lift the upper body, but keep looking down. Good. And then when you're back to standing, jump the feet together. Ooh, easier said than done, that one. Brilliant. So we're a little bit twitchy in the legs now. So let's quiet it all down, finding a sense of balance from the top of the head all the way down to the heels. Let's place the hands with palms facing forward, weighted so that they're either side of the hips. Exhale, draw the tummy button in. Open the sole of the left foot. So feel that left foot almost like grab hold of the earth, but keep the toes nice and soft. Then lift the right knee up. Ideally, the knee will be as high as the hip so that once more we make that 90-degree angle. The sole of the foot parallel to the floor. I shouldn't move position. Then use the big toe to draw 3 little circles in, 3 little circles out. Good, great balance, fantastic. Replace that foot to the mat, core engagement again. Lift the opposite knee. Find again that sense of balance, that center. You can keep your hands by your side. You might prefer to bring your hands in front of the heart. And then we'll just do that little rotation, mobilizing the ankle once more. Beautiful. And replacing that foot to the floor. Releasing the hands either side of the hips. Inhaling to lift, bringing the palms together. Push through the fingertips. Keep the knees soft as you exhale, hinge forward. Let the fingertips tickle the floor. Just let the back of the neck release. You can bend the knees if you need to. And just allow that space in the lower back. Just widen. Let go of any tension. Keep the back of the neck nice and soft. Bring the hands onto the thighs. Exhale, draw the tummy button in. Keep looking down at the toes as you roll up through the spine. Then roll the shoulders back and down. Fabulous. I think you've earned a little lie down. You've done very well. So make yourself comfortable again. If you need a blanket, if it's maybe got a little bit chilly, or a pair of socks, then have them to hand just to pull on. I'm not a huge fan of using pillows. I feel it kind of lifts the neck a little.
But you know what you need to get comfortable. There's lots of layers going on. I obviously didn't work hard enough. So I'll give you a few moments to just get yourself adjusted. And then remind yourself that you want to feel equally weighted through both sides of the body. We all have a dominance. We all have one side that we tend to roll onto. And without judgment, recognize that perhaps you're a little tighter on one side than the other. So let's try and bring ourselves into a balanced weight. Start by placing the hands either side of the hips, turning the palms up towards the ceiling. Then separating the feet, allowing the weight of the feet to either roll inwards or outwards, whatever best supports you. And we'll start from the soles of the feet, letting go of tension. Gradually drawing your awareness up through your body. And as you come across any muscle or any joint that feels a little stiffer, a little restricted, give it a little nudge and encourage it to release and to relax. Effectively easing the weight through the back of your body, a little more deeply into the earth once more. Feel yourself fully supported here. Return your focus to the breath and travel back to that deep yogic breath. Inhaling deeply to the belly, the chest and the collarbones. Exhaling fully from the collarbones, the chest and the belly last. So once more, it's like filling a balloon from the bottom up. Emptying that balloon from the top down. Feeling your inner light expand and widen into the space that surrounds you. Visualizing an outline around your body. And every time you breathe in, notice you're filling yourself right up to that line. You may notice that the light that you choose to fill that outline with has a colour. There's no right or wrong. Just visualize that colour completely surrounding you. Notice that with every inhalation, that outline is travelling further and further away from your body, widening your energy to fill this room. Now simply maintain your focus on the breath. Rest here and breathe here. Shanti. 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 Maintain your focus on the breath. If the breath becomes a little shallow, this can indicate that we're drifting a little deeper than we need to be. Inhaling deeply, exhaling fully. Gradually bringing your awareness back to the physical body. Feeling your connection through the body with the earth beneath you. And firmly placing yourself once more in this room. Returning sensation by wiggling fingers and toes. If you're lying with the legs outstretched, you may wish to take a long stretch through the body. If the knees are bent, you may prefer to hug the knees towards the chest and do that little rock and roll from one hip to the other to ease any tension in the lower back. In your own time, roll to the side that feels most welcoming to you. Pausing there for a moment to blink the eyes open. Then returning once more to a comfortable, seated position. I just haven't seen Jane sit up yet. I think she's having a snooze or taking her time. Just like to check in you're with us, that's all. Now bring your hands to an Anjali Mudra. Touch to the head for kind thoughts, to the lips for kind words, and to the heart for kind intentions. The light in me honours the light in you. Namaste. Lovely work.